In this next breakout session in Track 2, Qualys' Joe Petrocelli, VP Product Management and Partner Programs, alongside Jerry Hughes, the co-founder and managing partner, SVP Operations at Encompass IT Compliance, will help you navigate the new frontier of PCI DSS 4.0 compliance. Please welcome Joe and Jerry.
Thank you. All set? Awesome, thanks. All right, I'm losing a third of my audience here. I'll just let everybody exit out. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming to this talk. We're going to be talking today about changes in PCI 4.0. I am Joe Petrocelli, and joining me soon will be Jerry Hughes, and we'll call him up on stage in just a few minutes. So how this is going to work, we're going to talk about PCI 4.0, what's new, what's changed, what we're doing from a Qualys perspective, and then Jerry and I are going to have some Q&A back and forth, and we'll go from there. All right, so what is PCI 4.0? So PCI 4.0, when we're really talking about it, we're really talking about there's 64 individual controls, which are based off of 12 individual principles that come from PCI, which really roll back to 6 different larger objectives, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It applies to really any organization at all that accepts or handles any type of payment data, so cardholder data, in-house, and it broadly tracks back to the NIST cybersecurity framework, so the CSF. So what is new in 4.0? So in 4.0 takes a bit of a risk-based approach to protecting cardholder data. So you really get to decide, sort of like a choose-your-own adventure, how it is exactly that you are, in what order you are mapping to those objectives based off of what makes sense in your environment. There's also a larger emphasis on scans and continuous monitoring, right? So before, where you had annual assessments, you just had to make sure that that yearly annual thing was complete. Now there are annual assessments. Your assessors have the ability to essentially request data coming in at any given time, and you need to be able to provide that. There's also a larger look at how we protect our cloud assets, right? It's no longer like it was 25 years ago where your payment data might have been stored online. So there's a larger emphasis on cloud infrastructure and protecting cloud infrastructure. And then enhanced reporting. So there's, like I said earlier, there's these continuous monitoring processes that exist now. So you need to be ready for that. And there's also just a larger focus on reporting requirements in general. And like I talked earlier about that evidence-based reporting. So in terms of requirements, as I said, there's 12 broad requirements, and they really focus back down to those 6 objectives. So we're not going to cover every single requirement, but they like I said, they go down to those 6 objectives, which are really based off of building and securing your network systems. So this is everything that you would think of in terms of providing endpoint security and network security and all the typical things that you would find in an enterprise, in a mature enterprise security program. And then protecting cardholder data, so making sure whether or not that data is sitting on a system and at rest or whether or not it's in motion, making sure that you're encrypting it and protecting it to the best way possible. Maintaining a vulnerability management program that's specifically called out to make sure that you're focusing on risk and that you're taking a risk-based, exposure-based approach. Implementing strong access control measures. So this is really focusing in on user data, right? Who has access to my information? Who has access to the systems that are actually providing security? And then monitoring and testing networks. This is having that always on monitoring of ensuring that your security controls are actually doing what you think that they're doing for your environment. And then in a very basic way, maintaining an information security policy. You'd be surprised how many SMEs out there not only it can show you what their policy is, but have it up to date, have it maintained, have it in place. So why are we having this conversation? Why is it important? PCI comes with some expensive fines, right? As you heard a number of times yesterday, whether or not you were at my talk or Sumed's talk or Mayaresh's talk, everything eventually rolls back down to money. And non-compliance is incredibly expensive. I mean, you've got fines that are upwards of $100,000 per month. It's also about that trust that you build, right? You want to be able to, your customers want to be able to ensure that the data that they're providing you, whether cardholder data or personal data, is safe. And security breaches, on average, are over $4 million, once you take into consideration brand reputation and everything else. And lawsuits are also averaging at that $4 million mark. When you look at the compliance landscape, it's about 4 out of 10 companies are actually achieving 100% of PCI compliance. That means the majority of customers out there aren't, at least according to the Verizon report. And over 90% of transactions have some sort of malice involved, or some sort of identity, some sort of identifier that says, hey, we think something's up and it's not necessarily kosher. There's also a broad, what's the right word? A broad habit of going to individual point solutions, right? Point solutions that might say, okay, I provide one specific control, or I meet one specific objective, but aren't necessarily meeting all of them. And those solutions, once you start putting them all together, require a lot of manual effort to stitch them together, right? Whether or not you're talking about a SIM or some sort of aggregator of sorts, to make sure that you've got a very, very clear picture of security and risk. So let's talk a little bit about timeline. So frankly, the clock here is really ticking, right? I mean, especially when you consider how far some organizations are in the process. PCI 3.2 to 3.21 was retired, I think, in Q4 of this year, or Q1 of this year, rather. And 4.0 was announced sometime mid-2022. 4.0 is going to start being enforced in April of this coming year. So the date is 3/21, 3/31. That's right.
It's just certain requirements were delayed.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're totally good. So how does Qualys help? So what are our goals and how can we help? So in a really succinct way, we can help you identify and tag high-risk assets and identify gaps in your security posture. We can get you speaking with a common language when it comes to threats in your environment and when discussing compliance across the board, because you're going to be working in a single platform and securing a single platform, or securing inside a single platform, rather. And lastly, we want to make sure that you're going to be showing progress in compliance and risk reduction through utilizing the Qualys platform. So the Qualys platform can use a targeted prioritization to create quick wins and create a comprehensive roadmap for you to reduce risk. We then use customizable dashboards, as everyone's familiar with, and reports to highlight key indicators of progress and support both operational and financial planning for your PCI DSS 4.0 implementation. And lastly, by utilizing the robust reporting capabilities across multiple products, all from a single platform, we can really provide that consistency that auditors and assessors want to see in order to, frankly, make their jobs a little bit easier. Okay, so not only is Qualys an ASV, but we also give you that single platform to achieve nearly complete compliance with PCI DSS 4.0. So one dashboard to monitor your PCI posture, and to take it one step ahead, we've created a free step-by-step playbook that helps you map the Qualys TruRisk platform to the PCI requirements, which is available totally free. So I'll have a QR code up here once we finish, and you can take a picture of that, and you can get access to that. All right, so I'd like to bring up Jerry. Jerry, you can come on up, and I guess we can crowd the stage.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Man.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank our partner, Qualys. We've been partners with Qualys for about 17 years, about the same time that our company got involved with PCI. So I've been a qualified security assessor for quite some time now, and we've seen so many changes. The gentleman in the front row, I was talking to him earlier, he has seen it since 1.0, and the changes are unbelievable. 4.0 took it to the next level, and a lot of our clients had different challenges with that change or those changes. So 4.0 has been in effect, and the changes of the 64, There's like 13 that went right into effect. The remaining ones are March 31, 2025 that need to be addressed, and different clients are handling it different ways.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry, for the intro. So I've got several questions,
Sure.
and we'll just go through these, and that'd be great. So from your perspective, how ready are enterprises to meet PCI 4.0 compliance in 2025?
So broad question. So some of our clients, many of the clients are suited well in the sense that they went out in advance, did a gap analysis, right? They had us come in. We have a number of QSAs on staff. Went in, kind of sat down. Here's where you are relative to where you need to be when the council announced the new version. So we started early, and that's the recommendation going forward, right? So as these guys come out with new, because they have a new point release, it's more clarification. So really 4.0.1 is out and will be fully the one in use at the end of the year. But start early, look at the differences between where you are and where you need to be, and address the highest changes or the biggest changes. And some of those include the authenticated scanning, which is a big game changer. And the solution that Qualys has actually pretty good. We have not just been a partner, we've been using them as our proof scanning vendor for all of our PCI rocks that we perform. So that's been great. But other changes, things that should have been around for a while, I was blown away that they allowed 7-digit passwords, 7-character passwords forever. And now the requirement is 12. Like setting it to 12, that's been a long time in coming, and unless there's constraints, and you at least had to make 8. Other things, access to the cardholder data environment, you would think that would be also, that should have been really ramped up, and just now they're requiring all user access to use MFA. And MFA has been around forever, and we're a little slow behind the 8 ball on some of these things, I think. And the other one of the big items I want to call out was, and I think Joe mentioned it, with the targeted or the risk assessment. They call it a targeted risk analysis, and all it is really most of your organizations should be already looking at things from a risk-based perspective, right? So looking at identifying, so everybody's got changing business needs, and even if your businesses aren't changing that much, be sure to realize that if you were here for the last presentation, you'd have seen the threat landscape is changing. So with all these changes, you've got to make changes to your environment to meet those ever-changing threats. So it's kind of an ongoing battle, right? It's not a one and done. And one of the biggest misnomers with PCI is people think because we come in, we're performing an audit at one point in time, moving forward, it's not just you're done then. It is ongoing, continuous compliance all the way through to your next validation. So it's 365.
Yeah, and sort of with that, I mean, you talked a little bit about changes. So I mean, obviously, since the last there's been a lot of update and a lot of investment in the cloud, ephemeral workloads, dynamic environments in general. Like, how has that affected the ability to manage and document PCI DSS compliance?
Yeah, so when I mentioned I started way back, it wasn't really these cloud solutions like there are today. The other thing is, look, COVID-19 changed everybody in this room, probably your workforce, the way things are being done. It's not all folks sitting in one network environment in a facility or facilities. Folks are working virtual, and those presented different challenges, right? So if you've got assets that are utilized by folks that are in the cardholder data environment or either store, do the transmission or processing, these assets need to be assessed or evaluated as well. So it creates a challenge. But with the solution, the Qualys solution for the cloud assessing, that's a game changer. That I don't run the scans myself. I have a group, Encompass CyberGuard, and these guys have been doing it forever, and they're good at what they do. But that solution is one that will allow, when we set up, you set up an agent on these systems within the CDE. So if I'm at AWS or name another cloud provider, each of the assets, you put an agent on those and then scan through, makes it much easier. And if you think about the remote computing environment that COVID dealt all of us, same thing applies, right? Folks having the agent on their systems can be scanned. So.
Awesome. And what about compliance drift? I mean, in an environment that's like constantly changing like that, obviously there's going to be drift. How to handle that?
So I don't know if everybody knows what the term is. I mean, essentially, think about this. In password, one of the changes was passwords, going from a requirement of a minimum of 7 to a length of 12. And if you look at that, for example, before 4.0 came out, I'm sitting with 7. I'm compliant. My QSA comes in and audits me, and we're good to go. Well, I haven't changed anything. Maybe some of the threats haven't changed, but the requirement changed. Now I have drifted out of compliance. 7's no longer allowable within the cardholder data environment. So outside of it, it's different. So that's one example how it changes. So the thing is, and I'll say it more than once going forward too, is you look at everything risk-based. So we do audit work in all industries. PCI is one, but we do it in all industries. And I'll tell you what, risk-based is the way you should be looking at everything in the first place, right? So when I come in to perform an audit for a client, you don't start with, oh, I'm going to build policies, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You need to understand your data, understand certainly the business, but understand the data, where it lives, so how it sits at rest and in motion, transaction processing, and data flow that, right? So take a network diagram, flow the transactions through, look at your confidential information and know where it is. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example later, time permitting, about situations where we've been working with clients that had situations where they did not apply their data classification. In other words, they had systems with confidential information. They didn't realize confidential information resided there. They didn't use the classification policy that they had, and they are subject to GDPR issues because they were overseas as well. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, so I mean, you talked a little bit about like confidential systems, stuff like that. Obviously, those types of systems are going to have compensating controls or other technologies that are already there. How do things like compensating controls impact PCI assessments?
So compensating control has been around for a while. This isn't new with 4.0. What was new with 4.0 was, and people mess this up a lot too, is a customized approach. So they said, look, if you have a setup and you've got your own controls that aren't the ones that are listed, if you look at the very lengthy PCI DSS, they've got the control objectives articulated there, and they essentially lay out the testing, what the QSA should be looking for. We need to see this to prove this is in place to mitigate the risks. If your organization decides to meet that requirement with your own defined custom approach, you can do that, but there's a lot of work with this worksheets, and with 4.01, they have moved them to their site, so they're out there. They used to be included in the doc, and now they're up there. But so the point is going now to the other side of it, which was the compensating controls, which is totally different. That is any particular requirement with the PCI DSS that I'm trying to meet this one, but maybe I have an old legacy system. I bet there might be some people in this room that either have some, or organizations you do business with may still have older systems that, whether it's in that case, a technical constraint, I can't meet it because the system just doesn't do it that way, or I have a financial constraint. Wow, I could do this, but this is going to sink my ship. I'm a small organization maybe, and it's financially a big burden for me. So when you meet one of those two criteria, now you go to the worksheet that's in the back of the DSS, and it kind of walks you through, right? You need to have, to meet the requirement, you need to articulate or define your controls and test those to ensure they together, the aggregate of these controls reasonably reduce the risk to that control objective. And you can't use any of the tons of controls. If you look at the DSS, you'll see, but you can't use any of those controls that are already there. So if I can't meet it, I've got a challenge, right? I've got to document these, test these, and they've got to be in place all year round till the next time they come back in there, unless they've updated systems and changed things, in which case you've got to reassess. Not for compliance, that's annual, but you've got to reassess your risks.
Awesome. So you said a couple times that organizations either didn't know, or they made mistakes, or they get something wrong. I mean, what other common mistakes are organizations making when they're trying to get compliant?
Yeah, so one of them, like I said, was the data classification is a big one. But the bigger one here, like more and more we're seeing with 4.0, and I like it because 4.0 brought to light some of the things that kind of people take for granted. Any audit work that you do, or that we do in your organizations, if you're assessing something, it's all about the scope, right? What is in scope, what's not in scope, right? So defining that scope and clearly, and proving it, right? So in the old days, it was more or less, they would say, hey, here's what we're looking at. And they may have other facilities, other networks that we just don't have any insight to, and they just say, that's what our scope is, this is what we want audited. And now with the changes, they're requiring you to pull together your network diagrams, the high-level detailed ones, and the flow diagrams, showing where things are. What kind of encryption do we have at rest, in motion, and documenting all of the same so that we can now prove this is the footprint for our cardholder data environment.
Awesome. And I think the sort of last question I have is, we over the past couple days, we've introduced a lot of new technology, like Qualys. There's conferences like this. Organizations are constantly releasing new types of technology. In terms of emerging tech, what have you seen that you think might shape the future of PCI DSS?
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's a lot of, right, when you guys have all seen, you're all probably geeks like me, and you see all the changes out there. AI is like the #1 thing you're seeing everywhere, right? People are using it, and it's exciting. I always say this, I've probably said this speech way back 20 years ago when I started working with my business partner, it's a case where it's exciting to bring new technologies to the table, right? You may be a smaller organization competing with one of the big boys, and to do that, technology can afford you that, right? And give you that new delivery channel, that new way to do better business with more people and serve your clients. That's what we all want to do. But if you get so excited about it and you deliver that before it's ready, that is to say before risk assessing it, that targeted risk assessment I mentioned, that applied way back when. We're using new terms now, but it's the same thing. Look at the risks associated with the new deliverable, the new delivery channel or product, whatever you're looking to roll out. Assess the risk before you implement it. And then you can do it in a sound, secure way with adjusting policies as needed to meet that, implementing those policies. I got people that have great policies, and half the staff doesn't know where they are, first of all, or what they do, or what the requirement is. So have a good policy set. I know you mentioned that earlier, and I love it. It's more than just the policies, though. It's a security program, so it's holistic. It's education, it's policies, it's procedures, it's monitoring that Joe mentioned earlier. It's the whole thing, and it's ongoing. So it does require a lot, for sure. But once you get it going, once you get that ship in the right direction, keeping it there is a lot easier, right? So I think that's probably a good one. But the AI, and I missed it. I told him before this conference, or this session, that I was intending to go see the new AI, Target AI, is it?
Total AI.
Total AI. I missed it, and so I'm at a disadvantage. Did anybody see that? Did anybody sit in on that? The Total AI? I read about it. It's fascinating, about going through and identifying assets and assessing them. Phenomenal, and it's coming out soon. So we're going to be looking at it because I know a lot of our clients, we've already worked with clients that are trying to jump into AI. They're throwing stuff out at ChatGPT. Hey, why don't we take this report that has confidential information, throw it out here and have it QA it? Really? Do you know the security of the platform? I wouldn't bank my life on a public platform like that. So you got to look at what you're doing, make sound business decisions, risk-based decisions. We always talk, hey, it's compliance or security. I'm going to lean over on security. You lean on security and you do it the right way, compliance is going to be easy. So stay ahead of it, risk assess ongoing, and monitor, because you know soon to get it in place, and the bad guys are over here, the bad actors are over here trying to get in, and that will never end.
Awesome. All right, Jerry. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, one last note on AI. Did you guys see my picture that's in there? That was done by AI. I did not ever look like, no, I had a short flat top, one on the sides. This is a product of COVID-19 as well. So, hey, Joe, thank you. And Qualys, thank you guys for having us. I'll give myself a applause.
All right, so I'm just going to sum this up. So, take the following actions. I mentioned earlier, we've got the PCI 4.0 playbook. You can get that if you scan this QR code, if you trust those sort of things. The website is right there as well. Reach out to Encompass IT. Encompass IT is a partnership with Qualys. They provide a free consult, a 2-hour consult for any Qualys customer. So please reach out to them, and then also get the latest copy of our the mandate report to get insights into your environment. So that's it for me. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.